Friends, welcome. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the Super Doodle Girl 100-day playbook in a 100-day creative project. So the playbook that I've put together is based on this 100 days of doodle inspiration from 2022. So during that year, I embarked on taking an inspirational word each year, and I sat down in my journal, wrote the word, added either a quote or sometimes the definition, and really explored those 100 words in a variety of lettering styles and layouts. And so I had a lot of my students in the doodle lettering class and some of my journaling classes ask for a playbook. So I'll show you what I put together. All right, so the Super Doodle Girl 100-day playbook includes 100 words. So I put together, you have a little checklist where you can put the date. So you can start this anytime. So if you want to start with the actual 100-day project, you can do that. If you just want to practice 100 days after you take doodle lettering, do that. And this is just going to be a framework so you don't have to look up the words and you can just immediately get to creating your art. So with this, you have a place to put the date, what day it is in the project. I gave you the word. And on this part of the handout, these columns are for you to make notes of, to anything else if you want to add additional parameters for your project. These are customizable for you. So that's part of it. So 100 of the words. You also get, I put together the word with the definition and also a quote for each one. And so it's this was a printout of my original spreadsheet that I used, but what you get is nicely formatted. It's very easy for you to follow. So with that, so you're not having to pull that content together. So that's part of it, all of the words. And then the part that really got me excited, and I couldn't print this in color at my house because I'm out of my colored inks, but let me show you what this will look like. You would see my colored artwork and beneath it the lined artwork. Some of them I've included the lettering and others I left you a little space if it's kind of smaller and you can jot in your favorite quote or the definition. So with the black line artwork, sometimes it's completed and other times it has space for you to add things that make it unique to you. So this is part of the PDF you get. So it's the fully completed artwork with the black line artwork beneath it. And then another element of the playbook is where you get, it won't have the colored artwork, so it's a different file. So this one, I printed this out on the nice HP 32 paper, which is what we recommend if you're practicing lettering, if you're using lots of pen and ink and just a really nice experience for doodling. So you can do that, and it takes colored pencils just beautifully. So one of the things you could do for your 100-day project, you could print out all of the artwork and you could look at the colors that I used, or you can just create your own color palettes. So I'm using, these are the Prismacolor colored pencils. They're a really nice, satisfying way to color. I really enjoy using them on that HP 32 paper. I'm going to just do this quickly just to give you the idea. You're like, Roxanne, we know how to color. I know. I just want to show you what you can do with simple tools. So I just have two colors here. One of the things you could practice with this is you could look at my artwork, because mine were all done with watercolor and pen and ink. So you could look for areas where I have darker areas and lighter areas. And so you could practice using your colored pencils to kind of mimic that. So you can have the dark areas kind of going behind. You could also practice the blending of your colors. I'm going to just bring in a second color here. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, so you can practice doing that. So there's a lot you can practice just with coloring, using the 100-day playbook as a coloring book. I'm not even going to switch. I'm going to keep the same tool. You can also practice some of your patterning. So now I'm doing a real intense pressure to add on there. So yeah, so that's one idea, is to take all of the black line artwork, print them off, and you have a 100-day project where you're coloring. And that can be a very simple one. You're going to get a lot of value out of that. You can practice your coloring. Now, another thing you could do, let's say you have taken Doodle lettering or Journal Jumpstart, or you're just want something that's a little bit more and you want to be creating. What you can do is you're going to take the pages that have my completed artwork and the black line artwork under it, and I'm using a light pad with the Grumbacher mixed media, the in and out pages. So this is the one that's the 5.5 by 8.5. It's perfectly sized for this part to use the playbook in this way. You can remove the page and then you can slip it back in after you're finished working on it. But check this out. So I have my light pad. I'm going to get the original page from the playbook, and I will trace the line work that's on the bottom of that page. This is really cool because the line work that I've given you on the bottom is very similar to what you see on the top. Now, when you're doing this, you can practice your pen control, your line control. You can copy as much of my artwork as you want to, or as little as you want to. So right here, I am going to start off, and you'll notice that I'm tracing, but I'm not tracing all the lines. Or you can take some of them. So what I'm doing is I'm not tracing everything, tracing some things. And this is where you can make your artistic choices based on what it is you enjoy, what it is you want to work on. And there is great value in tracing as a learning process. As you watch me do this, notice I'm working on my pen control. I'm noticing, I'm making decisions to not copy everything, taking some things. And so by doing that, you can take parts of what I'm doing and then create your own, all right? So, and this would be in, the top one would be in color, so you could really make decisions there. If you have other types of flowers you would like to create, you can do that. If you would like to copy parts of mine, you can do that. And so this is a fantastic way for you to improve your line work, to improve your lettering, improve your drawing. And so I'm coming up to the edge, and what I would encourage you to do, well, I say this, but some of you are going to want to have a ruler to get a really perfect line. I know you're probably watching me now going, oh, please get a ruler. Others of you will practice. There is value in just practicing holding and drawing that line out. I've got a little bit, it's coming over, so we'll add some doodles to that. It will be fine. But you get the idea. I'm going to turn that off, move it over here. So imagine that you have traced 100 of my journal pages. That's going to improve your eye. It's going to improve your hand. Oh my gosh, it's going to improve your drawing. I'm trying to look up authentic at the same time. All right, so this is what you would be looking at. So as you're drawing, you can see it in color. And then you can make decisions. You see, oh, so you see what I did. These lines are looser than they are in the black line. So maybe as you're looking at that one, you might want to shift and take a smaller sized micron or a fine liner, and you're like, you know what? I think I'm just going to come here and I'm going to add my own flowers. And so you can do this looking at mine as a model, and then just come over here and add your own. All right. So those of you that have been with me in Doodle lettering or Journal Jumpstart, you will recognize and be able to use a lot of the skills that we've been practicing in class. The other thing that's fantastic about using that, using a mixed media, is remember it is then you can do watercolor on it. We're just going to play a little bit. So with that, I can add just very simply and very quickly, because this is a 100-day project. You're going to get, you want to have that process where you can get in, get something on your page. You don't want to have it be an hour. So you want to do something that you can play with pretty simply. Oh, look at that. That's nice, right? And then we can take some of that if we wanted to bring it up. Yeah, and you can do all of this because this is a mixed media paper. So I can take a little bit more of that. My Journal Jumpstart people are probably looking, you see there's a little bit of a line on that, yes. But we can just take this and very quickly get a really nice little watercolor effect. Yep. All right, so that is one thing you can do, is you can just take that playbook and basically you can copy everything I've done, or you can use it as a coloring book and you can color in to match. So that's one thing. So let's see, what else could you do with that? Because you have a list of 100 words. You've got the quotes and you've got the definitions. All right, so this is 1 and 2, color it in as a coloring book. You could trace it. So you're looking at mine and you place another piece of paper over it and you trace that. The other thing you could do is you can use it as a model as inspiration. You're like, I'm going to try to draw that. So what you could do instead of tracing, you could look at what mine is and then you could be inspired by it. So you're looking, you're like, you know, I don't like how it comes down, but I really like the letters. So maybe you take the letters in a different way. Maybe instead of saying true to one's own personality, spirit, or character, you're like, I think I want to do, instead of the definition, I want to pop a quote in here. So let's say we're going to take a little different path, which is completely fine. But you're like, I like that kind of style of lettering. I like how those little crossbars come in. So we're going to do, I like that U. My T is going to kind of be like that. I'll let it come up a little bit. All right. So you see what you're doing here is you can take mine to be inspiration and then you can change it. So that's also another thing that you could do. This is hard for me to talk and like figure out what I'm doing at the same time. Okay, so here we go, and we have our authentic. I do like, I'm going to keep the heart on top. And we'll have a little C, and we're going to let that C cook out. All right, so you could see where it's inspired by. And then let's say with the sides, perhaps you want to take and nestle the flowers here. You're like, oh, I did like that big one down here. So we'll take and put some leaves. All right. And then maybe what you want to do is take and put the text over here. So you can see this is a way you could use it as inspiration to create your own artwork based on mine. And you can flip back and forth. So let's say some days you're like, I just want to trace it. And then other days you're like, oh, I want to change some things. So you could do that in your artwork as well. So those are based on you being able to look at my artwork, to be able to trace my artwork. Let's talk about what could you do if you're just using the words, but let's use it in a completely different manner, because this is having that list of words that is huge before you get started. So here, let's do a little something else. All right, so we have our words. What if, and I'm going to use these little hearts. I did not make them. These are some little hearts that were made by a friend of mine, Susie. Thank you, Susie. And she had them in a little card she gave to me. And I'm like, are these not adorable? I was like, those are so cute. And so she gave me, what do I have? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I was like, you know what? I think these are so cute. So another idea for a project using your playbook is you could make 100 little hearts, because that would give you practice with your watercolor, gives you practice with kind of making, repeating something 100 times. You would be amazing at the hearts. If you're new to watercolor, you can let that watercolor blend into each other. And then here's my idea is you could take that, and then you could take those little squares that I showed you in the other video. And what we could do is then you could just attach a heart to the square and then do something behind it. All right. So this one, let's say we're doing abundance. So this would be a great way for you just to practice just a simple composition. Maybe you practice your stretched out cursive. So let's see, for abundance, maybe for abundance you have 3 or 4 smaller hearts to put on, but it is as simple as this. I'll start with drawing the lines around the perimeter. And this gets you really comfortable making little frames. So I'm going to go around 2 or 3 more times just to add a little bit of interest. And now we'll just switch to a smaller micron. This one's an 03. And let's see, which word do I want to do? I think balance would be a good one to do. So I'll select one of the hearts and perhaps place it, yeah, I think in the center. Oh, nice, nice. Here's a nice layout. And then I'm going to do, instead of a stretched out cursive, I'm going to do small caps, but put space between them. So I'm creating a balanced layout. So even though these are very small works of art, you can practice many elements of design in this very small form factor. This is one that was cut out of watercolor paper. I'm going to scoot that one over. So another thing you could do, oh, you know what? Let's do something a little bit different. So for this one, let's do a little background. I'm just going to put some color on here. This is a technique, you know, our creative meditative flow class, our journal jumpstart people, you recognize this. So we have just 2 lines. I'm going to come in and I'm going to just put some water on here and let these colors mix on the page. This may or may not be a good idea. It might be to just letter with them. But this would be a great way. So you're like, you're not taking all of my artwork and copying it. Maybe you don't have that much time to, you want a little simpler project. Well, I'm giving you 100 words. And then you can just maybe play on a smaller scale. Oh, and this is one we've discovered. Some of those tombos have a little more stain. It's a little bit harder to move the pigment around on the page. That's really nice. All right, so here we go. And as soon as that dries, you can let it dry. And then you can come on top of it with your ink and with another word. Let's see, I think this one might look good in there. Maybe an orange down here. So yeah, so then you see, oh, this would look really nice. So you could explore with that. So maybe this one is bold. So we've got bold, so that might be kind of interesting. Yeah, so that's a great way to take these words and sit down each evening with it. You think of like abundance. You have a little mini blank canvas, and what are you going to do with abundance? You can practice your lettering in different ways. I think this would be really interesting to just have a whole bunch of those so that can be part of your practice. Maybe once a week, you make several more hearts for the upcoming week. And then each evening, as you sit down, you can explore very simply the word and just, I think the word and just playing with like some color and attaching those, I think that would be fantastic. That would be so much fun. So this is a version of taking this in a very simple format. All right, let me scooch these out of the way because we're going to build on this concept with a little different form factor. I have another little idea for you. So we have, I'm going to let that one dry. So this is one, I shared this one in both the journal and the paper videos. So this is, this little holder will hold 100 pieces of artwork. All right. So my idea was to take papers that you've just been practicing on. You know, you've got all those papers. You're like, what do I do with all my practice papers? Cut them into this size. So this would be your preparation work. You could just find old papers where this one I was learning, I was testing some watercolors, and these are just not very delightful on their own. So let's transform them into some background for a 100-day project. Okay, so with this, oh, I can do it. I can do it just like this. It looks like, oh, these are very close to, oh yeah, this is perfect. This is some 8x10 paper I have. So let's just trim it off. And this is a great way to reuse some papers or some things that you already have. I always like to do that too. It's fun to do in a 100-day project. So now we've got these little cool little cropped pages that you're not going to know. You're not really designing them. They're just going to be however you cut it, you're going to end up with, it's going to, oops, look at that. However you trim it. So some of them are going to have more white at the top. Some will have less white. Some of them will have, you know, interesting shapes on them. But don't overthink it. So literally just grab some old scraps of paper. We're going to cut them. Let's see. And this one, we're going to trim just a little bit more off. And notice this one, this is not, I'm definitely not being precious with this because this is to get the reps in, right? This is not perfection for me, the way I approach it. I want to be able to just do 100 days. All right, so we have these interesting little backgrounds. And so then you could look at them and you have your 100, you've got your playbook. So a couple options for you. You could just do the word on it. You could also look at, you could look at the definition. So for abundance, we have an appreciation of life in its fullness, joy and strength of mind, body, and soul. Interesting. So with that, let's just play with abundance. This is our first page. I wouldn't overthink like trying to put them in the perfect order. I like to use my 100-day project to come to the page and see what I can play with. That is I really enjoy that. I'm an improviser. So as we come to this, so we have abundance. And so what I'll do, I'm just gonna very simply, all caps, let's just add it onto the page. Abundance, you see what's going on? Did you see what's happening here? N, C, E, barely made it. And that happens often. And so, especially as you begin the 100-day project, before you get into the rhythm, you're like, okay, as you move on, by the time you get to day 60, 70, your eyes are going to be better about figuring out how much text you have and where to get it onto the page. So with this now, I am going to let my pen do some exploration. And notice I'm just playing with what came with this page. So this could be an interesting exercise to where you could set some of your rules being you can't add any more color to it. You know, do your backgrounds, and then when you come and you're adding your words, you don't add any more color to it. Or you could say, okay, I'm going to add one color to it. So those types of rules, as you play with it, that's what I love about the 100-day project, because I use it to help strengthen my courage coming to the page and my creative ideas. So I want to use it in a generative form. So with this one, I think what I'm going to do is just come down under it, and I want to remember fullness of life. I like that word. It's a little bit different, but I like that. Fullness of life. Okay, part of the reason that I selected these 100 words was I wanted to work with them in a deep and significant way. And so now as I'm looking at this, I notice there's a little bit of extra space on the left side. So I'm thinking, what are just some small marks I can add to this? So I'm going to grab I'll look at this to balance it out. I'm going to use the size 10 Tombow, my goodness, the micron. I'm going to just add a few dots over here. So this layout is quite minimalist and very different from that maximalist style that I tend to do. And so with this can be a really quick way to practice some line work, to practice some of your lettering, and then, like I said, to really get in tune with these words. Now, one of the things I do encourage you to do is to flip it over and write the day. You can also put the date on the back or anything else that you want to remember about this card, this little miniature work of art you have created. If you're using something that has loose pages like this, I highly recommend that you have some type of album or container for it. So this one I showed in the tiles video, and look, this is just really nice. Each day you can just slip each one in, and you have a great place to house your project. And you can imagine what this would look like after you have 100 words in it. Oh, this is really nice. And this was watercolor paper. So you just take some of the old paper that you've been testing out and bring it in. So you can see this would be really interesting. So this is going to be a much different experience compared to if you decided to copy my artwork. You could also take this and use it as inspiration as you come to the page. You're like, oh, there's some ideas, because you're going to have 100 of my journal pages are scanned into the playbook, and then you have the black lines to actually see what it would look like to draw that. So that's another thing that you could do here. Doesn't that look satisfying? I think that would be really, really satisfying at the end of 100 days to have that. All right, so those are some options for you. You can take the playbook and you can trace it exactly. You can take it 100%, just trace it and be on your way. You could also take the playbook, print it out, use it as a coloring page to where you are really absorbing my style and my artwork into, you're noticing how I connect my letters, you're noticing how I balance things on the page. So that's a second idea. So you can trace it, you can color it, you can use those words in a much smaller form factor, perhaps adding something to it. You could also use just a tiny form factor and still use the artwork for a much smaller image. So you can do that. You can miniaturize it. Or you could take and recycle practice pages that you might have around. Perhaps you have a Canson XL mixed media. It's got some old artwork. You're like, or stuff you didn't finish. Chop it up. Just put it in here. You've got 100 pages of it. The next day, whatever's the next word on the list, take it out, add your word, add the definition or the quote, and you're on your way. So this was, several people had asked. We've got a lot of people who have the playbook, but they wanted a little more ideas and instruction for how they could use it. And I hope this helps. I have all of the supplies and things that I've used. I have those linked in the Amazon store, and I'll also put some links below in the description. So it is time for you to get started. As we say in class, you don't get better by thinking about it, you get better by doing it. All right, so best wishes on your 100 days of creative practice. So think about what you want to do, how you want to do it. If you do need, or if you're a little crunched on time and you want to go ahead and grab a copy, the 100-day playbook is linked below, as well as a lot of the supplies and things that I have used. Happy creating, friends.